at D1 Baseball. If you are a college baseball fan, it's the go-to spot. Kendall, we always appreciate your time. I've never really jumped on this train. I don't know why I feel differently this year because the weather's been spectacular for the first 2 weekends where we are. Is it time for us to seriously consider pushing the start of college baseball back at least a couple of weeks till around the 1st of March?
Yeah, I think that actually make a lot of sense. Like anything, man, I think there's a middle ground. I think if you look at college baseball as a whole, I think when you look at the beer showers at Swayze, you look at the left field lounge at the Dude, like I don't want to get too far back because I think you start to take out some of that mystique a little bit when the students aren't on campus. But yeah, I'm with you. Like I think a March 1 start date would make a lot of sense. I think back to opening weekend to where I looked at a lot of places around the country, and it was like 38, 40, 41 degrees, and I think March 1st isn't perfect. Like Lord knows, like us in Texas and you guys in Mississippi, like it can still be pretty cold in March 1. But you have a better chance of having better weather. We had very uncharacteristic weather this past weekend. I mean, it was like 85 degrees in Round Rock where I was this past weekend. It was kind of unbelievable.
I mean, I'm actually in Jackson for a couple of days this week where our network studios are, and when I got out of my truck today at, 2:30 walking inside, it was 84. And we're still in February.
Yeah, I was sweating today walking with my wife.
But we have also had 6 inches of snow on March 1st. So, you never know exactly.
Exactly. No, I know how it feels. We were, I think, in Houston. We had that big freeze you guys had the same one. It was the weekend before Global Ice. The high that week, Ole Miss and Mississippi State were at Global Ice that year. The high 3 days before the tournament was like 7 in Houston. So you just never know, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, and the Metroplex had all the water issues, and they debated whether or not they were going to play it. It was such a big deal, so much anticipation because it was the year after COVID. They ended up pushing it back a day, and so it was Saturday, Sunday, Monday. But thank goodness they didn't cancel the tournament because it was spectacular. Oh, it was so good.
Oh, it was awesome. Like, I still remember Landon Sims' performance in that opening game, and Gunnar Hoagland, if you remember, I think he was a Saturday guy or a Sunday guy for Ole Miss that year.
Mm-hmm.
He was spectacular on Sunday. So you had Landon and Gunnar looking great. Yeah, that was a fun weekend.
Yeah, Ole Miss went 3-0 that weekend, and I came back from that event and I said, look, I get that it's not going to move, and I understand the mystique of Omaha, but I could make a really good argument for the College World Series being played at Globe Life Field. I could. I know that sounds like sacrilege. I understand. But when you think about the weather issues that we have, sometimes it's super hot, sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's rain, thunderstorms, difficulty getting in and out of not Lincoln, but Omaha. I mean, there's an argument that could be made.
Yeah.
I know. I mean,
you're my guy. You're my guy, but I'm not getting on board with that. I think the more likelier scenario would be that Omaha has some sort of roof situation on that ballpark someday. I don't think they're going to have a retractable roof, but maybe they have some sort of Florida style canvas. I don't know. I think you would have that before you would have them move that thing. I would not be in favor of that.
I know. I just thought it was a really good facility, and I was like, you could do this.
It's an awesome facility. It's an awesome facility to go to the first 3 weeks of the year. I don't know if I want to be there in June. Not to mention there's a team called the Texas Rangers that probably would not be real happy about having to leave for 2 weeks.
I mean, all they do is take an 11-game road trip. It happens all the time. It's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
We're doing all of this, I think, to avoid talking about baseball in the state of Mississippi, maybe. Last week, you were on It's Early, Let's See a Little Bit More. That was before we went through the midweek last week, which included Ole Miss losing to Arkansas State and losing their first game to High Point. Now, they bounced back in a big way, and I can't help but wonder if there's a spark. Mississippi State lost a pair of midweek games to Austin Peay, and they lost one of their games to Georgia Southern. Are you any more concerned than you were a week ago about either of these teams?
I think I'm in the same spot. I'll be very honest with you.
Okay.
I thought the week was a mixed bag for both. I think if you look at, I'll start with Ole Miss real quick.
Okay.
I think if you look at Ole Miss, obviously the offense was not great in the midweek game. The offense or the team as a whole was not very good in the opener. But I think the fact they scored 37 runs the last two games, Jackson Ross, we talk about guys that line up that have a lot of potential. Jackson Ross was a guy that, if it wasn't for Nolan Shanuel, Jackson Ross is like a slam dunk All-American last year. It's just Nolan got a lot of the accolades from that team. So, it was only a matter of time before a guy like that got going. Obviously, he had an incredible week. There's some other guys that line up. I know Will Furnace doesn't have the best average in the world, but I think you have to look beyond that. He had a big home run over the weekend for them.
Hit another one today.
I do, think, yeah, no doubt, man. I do think you can move forward. I do think it's imperative that Ole Miss get guys like Luke Hill and Tracy Hughes going. I do think if they're going to make a run in this conference, those two guys have to get going. But particularly Hughes. I think Hughes, just from a sheer versatility standpoint, has a little bit more to offer offensively. But I do feel better about this team. Do I feel a lot better? Not really.
Yeah.
But I think it really sets the stage for me, what really is an interesting weekend against Iowa, because I think both of these teams have a lot to gain and a lot to lose this weekend, particularly Iowa.
So Iowa's lost 4 in a row coming in. I don't know what they're doing today if they've played this afternoon, but as of Sunday they had lost 4 in a row. Tell us about this kid that we've heard about, triple digits on the radar gun, that's going to throw game one for the Hawkeyes.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Brody Brecht, he's going to be a top 5 pick in the draft. And I think, if you're Mike Clement, you're Coach Bianco, I think the big thing against Brody, and Auburn was able to get him out by, I think it was the 5th or 6th inning last week. He had 11 strikeouts. I think they allowed 1 run in 5 or 6 innings. But they were able to get him out of the game. And that was the big key to the whole weekend against everyone that faced Iowa, is Iowa starting pitchers with Marcus Morgan and Cade Overmiller and Brody Brecht. All three of those guys did a pretty good job. I tell you what, if you look at the bullpen and the job they did over the weekend, it was rancid, man. It was not very good. So I think if you're Ole Miss, you're looking at what happened last week and you're going, hey, let's work some pitches. Let's work that pitch count. Get him out of the game and get their bullpen thinking about it a little bit. So, that's kind of the scoop on their pitching staff. Brecht will be up to 1-on-1 this weekend. The slider has made strides. He's electric, but he can only throw so long. And so that's going to be the key. And then offensively, circle the name Sam Peterson. I think if Iowa is really going to get going against the Rebs this weekend, Sam Peterson is the guy that's going to have a big weekend down in Oxford.
That was a Brian Haydad word you used, by the way. Rancid, you said.
It was bad, dude. I want to say that they allowed all the 3 runs that Iowa allowed over the weekend.
That is
not good.
No, that's certainly not what you want in that scenario. Quick thought on Southern Miss. They win another series this past weekend. Feel like Oz's guys are playing well and pitching it pretty well. Made a little bit of a tweak in the rotation. Still had Nico Mazza starting, but brought Cross Sibley out of the pen from a matchup standpoint.
Yeah, how about that? I think the big thing with them is, can they get their offense going? I still, kind of like we talked about Ole Miss, last week, and their offense and Southern Miss's offense last week. I still feel like guys like Slade Wilkes and Peto and Monasterio. I know Monasterio is doing a little bit better now, but they really need to get their offense going. Indiana State's very good. They can really pitch. But, yeah, Southern Miss is going to pitch. It's just a matter of whether or not the offense can kind of come through. I think a lot like Ole Miss up the road. I think their offense will kind of figure things out. But, yeah, that is a big series. Missouri State was a favorite in Missouri Valley, along with Indiana State. So you got the two top teams in the Mo Valley down in Hattiesburg. Indiana State or Southern Miss, the winner of that series, could very well be ranked here in a week.
Okay. We'll certainly keep an eye on that. Hey, is Arkansas for real? I feel like they've played kind of a hard schedule. I guess 4 with James Madison. But man, those arms, Hagen Smith, Brady Tigert, all the third kid whose name I can't remember, Mason. Anyway,
Mason Molina.
Yeah.
I think they are very legit on the mound. They've got Texas Tech's Friday night guy from last year, their Sunday guy. Hagen Smith had a performance for the ages last week. Could very well be a top 2 pick in the draft. And then you look at Brady Tigert, who's done a terrific job transitioning from the bullpen to the rotation. I feel great about their pitching. I will say this. I watched a couple of their games over the weekend, and I think their offense is a very long way to go. But I do think Arkansas is one of those teams that they're not going to have to be great offensively this year. I think if they can just be decent offensively, they're still probably going to win 40 to 45 games.
Kendall, thanks as always for your time. We'll talk to you next Monday. Or Tuesday. What is today? Tuesday. We'll talk to you next Tuesday.